Our next speaker comes to us from California. Elise Miller has been with USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service since 1988. She's been a leader within NRCS's LGBT ERG, Employee Resource Group, and in 2014 successfully completed her transition in the workplace from male to female. We are so thrilled to have her here to share her story and to remind us of the breadth of our community. Please help me welcome Elise Miller.
Just a little bit nervous here. I want to acknowledge, before I get started, two very important people in this audience that mean a lot to me. My younger sister, Anne, sitting there in the hall, and then my younger daughter, Caroline, who's sitting over there. So they're important allies to me, and I'm just so appreciative of them being here. I also have notes. If I don't have notes, then I wouldn't get through this. Let's see. Clicker. I am transitioning to live, to be complete, and to experience my life to the fullest. My story begins not far from here. In amongst the oak trees and rolling foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, near the town of Shingle Springs, which is located east of Sacramento along historic Highway 50, in what is considered a very rural and conservative part of California. My three siblings, an older sister and brother, and one younger sister and I grew up on a small ranch that was surrounded by larger cattle ranches. My dad, an agricultural engineer working for USDA Soil Conservation Service in Placerville. My mom stayed at home with us kids. We were a very Catholic family, rarely missing our 7:30 a.m. Mass on Sunday morning. And believe me, us kids, we tried our best to explain to our parents how that was a detriment to our sleeping and that we needed our rest. My mom's wall hanging of Crookie Springs Ranch represents so much of what is special about this place. This ranch was for all of us. We all were shaped by living there. We learned about the raising of livestock and the growing of crops for food through our many activities in the 4-H program in our large family garden. During the years I lived there, the ranch sustained rabbits, chickens, sheep, hogs, cows, and horses. We also learned so much about ecology and the environment that surrounded us by playing and exploring the woodlands, grasslands, and perennial creek that flowed through the ranch. I grew up in a time where knowledge came from teachers, the school library, 4 channels on a TV, and the many volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica. There were no personal computers, internet, or cell phones. There were no safe spaces for those who were different. So everyone tried to fit to avoid being ridiculed and bullied. As I reflect back on my memories, the recollections reveal themselves much like chapters in a book. My earliest memory is one of innocence. I would title it My Age of Innocence. It occurred when I was 6, possibly 7 years old, close to the age you see me in this photo. I was in our house playing with my younger sister Anne, My younger sister and I are only 2 years apart, so we often ran around the house in varying stages of dress and undress, playing together with our stuffed animals and dolls. My mom was with my older sister, Kathy, in her bedroom. Kathy is 5 years older than me. My mom and Kathy were talking about how her breasts were budding and beginning to grow, and that she was in need of a bra. I could hear them speaking from the adjacent room and remember becoming very excited that my turn would be next. Thoughts of my older brother Ken did not enter the picture for me. He was a boy and most certainly would not grow breasts. Even though I knew the differences between my younger sister and I and the similarities between my brother's body and mine, I was excited, certainly not distressed. Somehow I thought that my body would naturally correct itself, that my prayers to God would be answered. Certainly there is more than one path to becoming a young woman. I looked at my younger sister and could see that her chest was still like mine. I was so happy thinking that it will be my turn next, that when it's my turn in just a few short years, my body would bloom, and those unwanted parts would fall off, fade away, or magically disappear. I thought if my mom was not worried about my deformity, why should I be? I had no concept to what it is to be transgender. I had never heard of the term from kids, school, or television, or that some people even transition. What I was experiencing is something that I thought was normal. I ask you to please look into his eyes. My second memory I titled The Winter of Endless Tears. Changes were happening to me. My skin was changing, my voice was getting deeper, hair growing from all parts of me. I was changing in a very gross way. I still did not have words to explain what I was feeling. I just remember thinking how different I was and feeling alone. I was 13 years old and cross-dressing for several years by now. I would always be in my mom's and sister's closets. I don't understand why I'm doing this, I would ask myself. Only that I felt right having something, anything on, that shielded my body from the boys' clothes. When I was caught, I was punished in a way to make me feel ashamed. My dad and I never spoke about my cross-dressing. I don't remember ever having a meaningful conversation with my dad. He deferred the issue to me, to my mom, to fix what was wrong with their son. Growing up on a small ranch, during springtime there was lambing season. After only a few weeks of life, it would be time for the baby lambs to have their tails docked and the ram lambs castrated. I would watch my dad and mom intently as they would use the elastrator to place the rubber bands on the tails and around the testicles, being careful to catch both of them. I would watch the lambs fall backwards off their feet as they winced in pain, only a few minutes later to get back up, no longer bothered. In a few weeks, I saw those undesirable parts shrivel up and fall off of them, and they were happy as they played in our green pasture. I began to look at the elastrator as a tool that can solve my problem, to stop the changes that were happening to me. Could I get by using only one rubber band, or would it take two to remove my male genitalia? I would stretch out a rubber band to see. It would take two. I don't think I can handle doing this twice. I remember wondering if the rubber band would do the job for me as it does for the lambs. Can I do this without my mom or family knowing, perhaps when they were away, just in case I screamed and cried out from the pain? I would spend the remainder of spring, summer, and fall of 1977 trying to build up the courage to use that illustrator. It rained insistently that fall and winter. Almost daily, it seemed. The ground was soaked, the barnyard slippery and muddy. The creek flowing through the property, constantly flowing over its banks. During a college football game between Notre Dame and USC in late October, my dad told me that the cancer he had been fighting the last 2 years is terminal, that the doctors can't do anything more for him, and that he's dying. I pretended like I didn't hear him or understand what he was saying, but I did. I didn't know how to process that information. My mom wasn't even there to talk to. In November, my grandma, my mom's mom, passed away, and our family officially entered into a deep state of mourning. My dad survived through Christmas, but passed away before year's end. My family was forever changed. My mom suddenly became a widow with 4 dependent children. What I was going through became rather small. The neighborhood where I grew up certainly wouldn't have understood me. The community would have ostracized my mom and brother and sisters. There would have been no safe space for them. Trying to figure myself out would hurt them and need to wait. I knew I needed to suppress myself. With that suppression would come years of depression and self-deprecation. I would go through college at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and then through my early and mid-career working as an agricultural engineer for USDA Soil Conservation Service and now the Natural Resources Conservation Service, struggling with gender dysphoria, doing everything I could to suppress my inner self, and feeling very much alone. In my 30s, I met this amazing woman who I loved very much. I thought that I had cured myself. For a time, the gender dysphoria diminished. We both wanted to be married, create a family, and have babies together. But it didn't feel right. After being married for 4 years, the gender dysphoria returned stronger than ever. We divorced after 7 years of marriage. She would not know about my gender dysphoria until after I decided to transition some 10 years later. I am a much better parent than I was a spouse. My third significant memory is titled Change Needed. In August of 2011, a couple of weeks after attending my 30-year high school reunion, it finally all caught up to me. Despite all the great things happening around me with my 2 daughters, my job, my home, I could no longer suppress and contain myself in the box I had created. I wasn't happy. I was crying inside. I knew that I needed to change. How could I possibly change the course of my life and not disappoint those people close to me? I have never been so scared in my life, not even today. At that moment, I looked deep within myself, and I no longer was able to fool myself or compartmentalize my life or resist my true self. It was in that moment that I looked into the mirror and reached acceptance. Although I could not envision the woman you see before you today, I also didn't recognize the man looking back in the mirror. I felt lost. My thoughts then went to my 2 daughters, my family members, and my friends. These people I love, respect, and care so much about. I was going to cause them so much upheaval and pain. The thought of hurting my daughters in this way was unbearable. And then I was going to ask them for their acceptance and unconditional love. I remember thinking how unfair this is. The hardest decision I ever made in my life was acceptance. To finally allow myself to look inward to my core and see the full and complete me. What I didn't realize was that my second hardest decision would come right after my first. That was to allow others the opportunity to meet and get to know the real me. I could no longer maintain the status quo. So it all came down to 2 options for me. To bury myself in the box I built around me as the father, brother, uncle, and son that everybody thought they knew, or to transition and allow my family, friends, and colleagues to either accept or reject me. The decision for me was obvious. Both options would be painful to the people I loved. If I contained and placed myself inside that box, my daughters would still have their daddy. They, in my family, would have many great memories of Robert to carry forward in their lives. I developed detailed plans and began to execute them. The solution would be painful. My hope was that by me taking on more pain, that I would save them from some of theirs. I began to say goodbye. Also during the fall of 2011, I needed to address my gender dysphoria. I began to allow my hair to grow out and started walking and running over 10 miles a day. In about 4 months, I lost nearly 80 pounds. People who worked closely with me began seeing me wear mascara and on occasion clear nail polish. It was during one of my interval walk runs up the hill that a man stopped to talk to me. He encouraged me to run up the remainder of that hill with him. We then walked along the trail for the next hour talking. We began doing this several times a week, never ran out of topics to discuss. All were very good conversations. I would think to myself, what a great guy he is. Too bad we cannot be friends, as I plan to off myself in just a few months. He persisted in the friendship, and soon I met his equally amazing wife. I would think to myself, why am I all of a sudden meeting such wonderful people? I am trying to say goodbye to friends, not make new ones. Around the holidays, a longtime colleague retired, opening up the LGBT Special Emphasis Program Manager position at work. I was honored to be chosen to serve in such a capacity by my agency lead. I could now see a pathway to transition in the workplace if I chose to do so. In January 2012, I began meeting regularly with a gender therapist. In February of 2012, my friend's wife invited me to her party to celebrate her 50th birthday. I remember that date well. It was planned for March 24th, the same day as my 49th birthday, and the date I had planned to end my life. I remember thinking, what will I do now? I was tormented as to what I should do. On March 24th, 2012, I blinked. I attended my now very good friend's 50th birthday party, my fingernails painted with a clear coat to not be too obvious. I made the decision to transition. I wanted to live, to experience my life to the fullest. My daughters will have the opportunity to either accept or reject me. I know this decision would be painful for them, but I will be there to help them through it. Today is the best day of my life, and tomorrow will be even better than today. I lost most of my family, my older sister and brother and their families, but I also strengthened my connection with my younger sister Anne and several first cousins who came to support me. I am especially thankful for the many cisgender women who came forward to help me. They taught me as a mother teaches a daughter, and then they embraced me as a sister. It feels great to finally be me. Thank you.
We all need heroes, and I think it was a feeling that I had, and it's very clear from this room that you are an inspiration to all of us. Thank you so much for sharing your story.